Hello everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Alien Covenant. This film was directed, of course, by Ridley Scott, who did the original, and then the prequel to the film Prometheus, which was the most recent film in the Alien franchise. I'm not going to pretend like I'm some sort of Alien aficionado, because I'm not. For me, the whole canon, the entire series has been, very inconsistent. Some of them I like, some of them not so much. It's always just kind of been a bumpy ride, very inconsistent for me, but I remember when they said that Ridley Scott was going to be returning and making Prometheus a few years ago, I had hoped that it would be more cerebral in nature than it had become. A film more about ideas that really captures the intimacy of what a sci-fi kind of psychological horror slash thriller could be. And I feel like this movie is kind of trying to find a balance between the more kind of thoughtful, more kind of psychological aspects of science fiction, while also being kind of like that B slasher type movie. This movie takes place 10 years after Prometheus, and it's about a crew on a colony ship called the Covenant, and they discover this new planet that looks like it could be some sort of great new hope for them to colonize. So they get a group of people together to leave the ship and go on an expedition, and this crew also involves Walter, who is played by Michael Fassbender, and he's basically like an upgraded model of the David android that we saw in Prometheus, who was also played by Michael Fassbender. While they're there, they meet David, who has actually been living there since Prometheus for about 10 years. And of course, this planet is not what they all thought it was going to be. Big shocker there, I know. It turns out to be a shop of horrors, basically. All of these different alien life forms are populated on the planet, just waiting to kill them all. I'll talk about what I liked about the film and then what I disliked about the film, as always. In terms of what I liked, I actually thought I enjoyed the parts that were more, as I said, cerebral, more thought-provoking, because this is a film that is very concerned with a lot of very interesting motifs that are dealing with evolution and creationism, and we do see quite a bit of like theological, philosophical references and elements throughout the movie. I love the opening scene that involves David and his creator, or as he calls him, his father, who is Dr. Wayland, that we saw in Prometheus. It's a great scene. It's eerie, it's unsettling, and it really encompasses what the film is about really beautifully. And it sets the tone for a lot of the core themes of the story, because obviously here you've got the creator and the son, and there are a lot of kind of references to mothers and fathers throughout the movie, a lot of the whole kind of familial binding. The movie begins with David, and he really is the star of the movie. I mean, I know that we're supposed to emotionally connect and maybe resonate more, obviously, with the humans, the crew members, but I really didn't give a shit about most of those characters, to be honest with you. I think that Fassbender playing both David and Walter was far more interesting. The rest of them feel kind of more like insert character archetype here, kind of cardboard cutout. Not very interesting, but David, I think when Fassbender is playing David as opposed to Walter, that's where the film is really excelling, because he is just a great character. He's clever, he's charismatic, he has sort of like a Hannibal Lecter sort of quality to him that's very conniving, but there's always kind of a sly wit. He's also creepy and bizarre and over the top. He kind of feels like one of those old horror movie characters from like maybe the German expressionist era of horror films. What I like about him is that you're never quite sure what he is up to. Because he is such an advanced robot, he has learned to sort of manipulate human emotions in such a way that they will buy into what he says. But often what he says is not what he means, and he has sort of proven in a way that he is the next stage of evolution, that what humans have created in these androids and in these machines will ultimately be their downfall. Some of my favorite scenes actually are the scenes between David and Walter, both the androids, just because I love the dynamic, because you've got one, David, who was meant to be, he was designed to be more kind of eccentric and to mimic humans. And then you have Walter, who's supposed to be more advanced, and he is a lot more cold. He's there on a mission, much more like a machine. And he really doesn't have that emotional filter, but the contrasts between them become quite intriguing in terms of how they handle each other. And it also says a lot about humans and how we've tried to maintain control through our own inventions, but how they sort of got the better of us. It almost has that kind of Frankenstein monster sort of feel to it when you think about it. But yeah, anyway, I think that just between those two characters, I love that there's an obvious bond, but also kind of a great divide. And that kind of more psychological tension is really palpable. So yeah, I could watch all the Fassbender stuff all day long, but I wish there was more of that in the movie, to be honest, because even though the movie is very well made, it falls into a lot of those traps, those horror cliches. For a movie that is called Alien, I don't feel like the aliens are really that integral to the actual plot of the story. And that's not to say that there aren't aliens, because there are. There are quite a few in this film. A lot more than Prometheus, that's for sure. But they're not the focus. They seem to be more kind of like a catalyst for a story that is going in a very different direction, especially thematically. I just question whether or not Ridley Scott is interested in the more alien aspects of the film. Because when I'm watching this movie, the kind of more creepy, grotesque kind of horror aspects of the film that do involve the aliens just don't seem to really fit, because they feel kind of like a cut and paste sort of thing, like an afterthought. There's not that much creativity to it. It's just generic. The movie looks gorgeous, of course, and it's sophisticated. I would say more sophisticated than a lot of the kind of standard blockbuster fare that you're probably going to see this summer. It really knows how to build the tension, I think. It built the tension very well in the first half for sure. But that just wasn't enough for me, because I didn't feel very invested in the human characters. And the crew that is on this mission is so fucking stupid. I mean, it's unbelievable. I get that they're trying to sort of go for that B kind of horror movie style, as I said before, where it's kind of like, don't go in the barn kind of mentality. And they're also trying to prove that humans are very flawed and that our judgment is really clouded. But this is a little ridiculous. They are led by the most incompetent captain, and they just blissfully and blindly go right towards their doom. And it could have easily been avoided, is the thing. So this really, in a sense, is kind of like a representation of America and the Trump presidency. And the heroine here is kind of just, whatever. The actress is very good, but she's basically just kind of like insert Sigourney Weaver stand-in number 4 here. She has that same kind of androgynous look, and she's the morally centered one, the grounded one with a conscience and all of that. But it just wasn't enough for me. I feel like you needed more complex human characters in order to kind of match up to what's going on with the androids. I think it just would have help balance the film out thematically. But I do admit I enjoy when they all start dying, just because there's actually some really good scenes. There's one in the beginning that I really like, the kind of the first alien attack, I suppose you could say, where there's just, it's very gory and there's blood everywhere, and that's a lot of fun. But I love that they use little things like characters running in and they'll slip on the blood, and all that stuff is just great. I mean, it's bound to make a lot of the kind of mainstream moviegoers cringe and cover their eyes and all of that. And I like that kind of stuff because it feels very physical. It's very kind of visceral. And that's the kind of the tone that you want to be going for in an alien movie, because it's very conscious of kind of the body horror. But the thing is, none of the rest of the movie has quite that interesting of a moment in it. A lot of the rest of the alien attacks just feel kind of uninteresting, a very kind of cold, just kind of going through the motions. There is a shower scene that is obviously kind of a throwback to movies like Psycho, which is, obvious, but it doesn't have any tension. It doesn't have any of the brutality or the vulnerability. There's nothing that really builds in it. I just feel like if you're going to make a movie that heavily borrows from slasher movies and like that genre, then you should go all in. Like, I should be feeling everything. I should be squirming, and I should feel like there's something wrong with me. It should awaken the hypochondriac in all of us. That is a good kind of body horror movie. Like a movie like Raw. I reviewed that earlier this year, and the way that they do it is absolutely right. That film has so much texture to it, and it is extremely bold. It's not afraid to take those risks. It's a movie that while you're watching it, you feel almost like you are in the character's skin. And so all the things that she's experiencing is kind of like instilled in you. And Ridley Scott, I don't think he's afraid to take risks. So I guess I'm just kind of concerned as to why we're not piercing through that exterior that much here, because it's cold. And because of that, the climax is kind of underwhelming. I was just kind of bored by that point, because at that point you just feel kind of like you're trudging through CGI sludge or something like that. It just kind of lost me. So as a whole, this movie didn't quite come together for me, but the scenes that I liked, I really liked. You know, I love the opening scene. I love the scenes with David. I love that first alien attack. That was really great. And so because of that, I am going to give it a slight recommendation. Not a big one. Like, it's one that, like, maybe rent it for a fun night, or, you know, see it at a matinee. I wouldn't pay full price for it, but yeah, that's my opinion. And that is my review. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below. You can also like my Facebook page and the link below that. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.